Hi, my name is Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss the plan by a number of parliamentarians, MPs and peers who are threatening legal action against Boris Johnson's government if he continues to ignore the threat to our democracy posed by Russia, as highlighted in the parliamentary report that was finally published last month. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So really there are three aspects to this. The first one is, okay, so what were the specific issues raised in the reports into Russian interference that needs tackling? The second is, what is the government's argument for not doing anything about it? And thirdly, crucially, what are the legal grounds anyone would have to push for some government action on the issue? So the specific issues, the report has a number of issues in it and discusses a lot of things, but essentially you could characterize it like this. The key issues center around the gradual entrenchment of Russians close to the Kremlin buying their way into British society and British political life. And now one of them has been elected to the House of Lords by Boris Johnson. For goodness sake. It also made the point that the government, under Theresa May mostly, because that's what the investigation was really into, but it also applies to Boris Johnson as well, specifically avoided any investigation into the issue. The government response to Russian interference is always to say that they've seen no evidence of it. Now, that only works if you've looked. And the implication, of course, by saying, oh, we've seen no evidence, is they have looked, because why wouldn't you? Any reasonable person will think, well, of course the government would have carried out an investigation. Oh, and they found no evidence. Well, there you go. What can you do? But the report makes clear they refused to look. They made a point of making it clear to everyone they did not want to see any evidence. There has been no investigation, and our security agencies have been encouraged to drop the issue. The report concludes that our democratic processes are highly susceptible to Russian interference, that it has been attempted in the past, very likely with considerable success, and that it is now too big an issue to even go away. So if we had a government that genuinely wanted to tackle it, they actually couldn't do it. In the short term, all we can actually do is mitigate against the damage. That's what the report says, which is frightening. And of course, even mitigating against the damage is something that, of course, we are not doing because the government refuses to do so for financial and political purposes. So then we consider the government's argument. Now, various senior members of the government, including Priti Patel most recently as far as I could tell, have tried to argue that the issues raised in the report, they're from years ago and they're no longer applicable. Now, this falls flat on two counts. First of all, they'd need to say exactly what therefore has changed in British politics to render the threats to our democracy nullified, because the report does not say that these threats have gone away. In fact, it says they are deeply entrenched and you cannot actually get rid of them in any short period of time. Then secondly, so here's the thing. As the report was about to be published, there was panic stationing in government. And the government made claims that the Russians had interfered in the 2019 December general election as a way of trying to distract from what the report was about to reveal to the world. Now, so I would have to ask, so which version is correct then? So are the Russians a threat to our democracy, and is that threat ongoing and deeply entrenched, as the report suggests? Or are these threats historical issues that no longer apply? And if they are historical issues which no longer apply, then you can't really say that the Russians were interfering in an election just 8 months ago, can you? Now, I'm not a high-flying barrister, as you know, but I can imagine that someone who is a high-flying barrister could poke more than a few holes in the government's response here. Maybe they could get Lord Panic QC back on the case after his demolition of Boris Johnson's government last autumn in the Supreme Court. But then we come on to this, so the legal grounds. Obviously, all of this threatened action depends very much on whether or not there are legal grounds to pursue it. Because the fact that Russia poses a serious threat to our democratic processes is laid bare in the report by MPs. MPs in all parties agree that this is a serious issue that needs dealing with. a number of recommendations were made in the report, not the least of which is you carry out a bloody investigation, and that hasn't been pursued by Boris Johnson. The report made clear that government ministers under both the current and previous Conservative administrations, specifically telling officials not to show them evidence of Russian interference so that they could truthfully say they'd not seen evidence of it, which they duly did. The report told a tale of Tory government that was negligent in their duties at best and traitors at worst. But all of that is pointless. Pointless. Unless they are actually breaking some law that is supposed to bind them. And you may imagine, well, of course they must be, but must they? It's a bit like the issue with Boris Johnson telling lies in Parliament or to the public. You know, if it's not against the law, limited in what you can do other than call out the lies. And certainly a court can do nothing about it. So the politicians pursuing this are arguing that the government's refusal to properly investigate interference from the Kremlin is a breach of the European Convention on Human Rights, specifically Article 3, which guarantees the right to free elections. Now, of course, if you've got a foreign power interfering in your electoral process, then the argument very much is that you do not have free elections. In fact, you could take it further and argue if you've got senior politicians telling lies, are those elections really free? But certainly if you've got foreign interference, how can they be? But again, I don't know. I'm not a legal expert. But the group is demanding that the government implement the recommendations from the Intelligence and Security Committee, which was comprised, I'll remind people, of a majority of Conservative MPs and headed by a Conservative MP, not only when it produced the report last year, but also now when it published the report. So this isn't a party political issue. This has cross-party support, this action. Caroline Lucas of the Green Party, who is part of this group, said that the government cannot be allowed to shirk this because Tory party coffers have been topped up with Russian money. The group also called for a single agency to be made legally responsible for combating foreign influence and for a ban on donations from abroad. Now, this notion of having a group responsible for combating foreign influence is really important. And you may think to yourself, well, we must, surely we've got agencies whose responsibility it is to deal with foreign interference. I mean, for goodness sake, we must do. But here's the thing, throughout this whole sorry saga, which is still going on, of course, it hasn't been dealt with, people have been asking why MI6, MI5, GCHQ have been doing nothing to protect us. And therein lies the problem. Straight away, there are 3 agencies that we can reel off who could have involved themselves in this. But against a background of a British government who actively did not want it to be pursued, none of those agencies wanted to touch this with a barge pole. And because it's not clear who is responsible, all of them can deny it's their job to deal with it. Indeed, they have. So it's extremely important that something like this is made the responsibility of a named agency. Not have agencies that can do something about it. You have one agency that must do something about it. That way, if something goes wrong, it's like, right, this was your responsibility. And also that there should be a named minister responsible in government, an elected representative responsible as well. Because passing of the buck cannot be allowed for something this serious. It really shouldn't happen in any level of government. But, you know, the defence of the realm. And the other issue is, just finally, as people point out, at the moment we've got an issue with Russia taking out political opponents again, the Russian government, that is. And we're criticising them, our government are criticising them for this. And yet, how can we? How are we supposed to criticise the behaviour of the Kremlin when those same people have strong connections to our own government and our own democracies? But there it is. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. I hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.